Have you ever like dreaded writing, and it's not like on some like I have writer's block, I can't think. You know exactly what you want to do, but there's a shadow behind you, and you know the shadow that's making you dread writing is deeper than the writing itself. Well, I finally turned around and I learned that I'm not afraid of writing. I'm afraid of what I'm writing and how much of me is in my writing. I figured it out because of tarot cards. Hi, my name is Vanessa and I'm a TV writer and a novelist, and today I'm feeling blue. I've written for shows like How to Get Away with Murder, I've written for The Sandman, Fate the Winx Saga, and I've developed anime. Right now I'm on a journey to completing a novel in 2 years. And I had to get off my knees, child. We can talk about writer's block, we can talk about craft, we can talk about productivity. I think it's also important to talk about the psychological impacts of writing and the things that come up when you are a writer. You might be nervous about what you're writing because it's vulnerable. You might be afraid, and we'll get into it, you might be nervous, like me, that the subject matter is too embarrassing, or the people that are reading it are gonna see, are you talking shit about me? Is this play about us? There's a lot of reasons why we can be afraid of what's on our page. And that's why I'm really glad that I have my own system of working with my emotions as I'm writing. So let me talk about my journey and like where I'm at. But spoiler alert, like we haven't fixed anything, but this is where I'm at. Just come sit by the fire with me. Sip your energy drink. So if you don't know, I'm writing a dual perspective horror novel. One half is told by the perspective of this monster. The monster is dying and it's trying to figure out why it's dying. It's made up of a bunch of human parts, prisoners' limbs, bodies. It's disgusting and it's gross and it's huge and it's dying. And it's like, why am I dying? So to figure that out, it's going into the memories of the last person that it's eaten to figure out, you must have done something to me. Let me look at the last days of you so I can figure out what happened to me. So the second perspective is that person in their last days, what happened, how they got caught, and their final moments. Ultimately, I want to explore how we use coping mechanisms to survive this dangerous system in the hopes that we will be spared from this dangerous system, and we never will. So I don't know if you've ever had that thing where you're like, I'm gonna skip this whole section of the book right now because of insert whatever reason you feel like is a good reason. You skip certain scenes, you skip certain characters, and you tell yourself, this is boring, I can do it later. I kind of was able to stick with the monster side of the story. And I kept skipping the POV of my other character. I kept skipping her, and I kept being like, I don't like her character. Like, I had this whole thing where it's like, she's gonna get caught because she's a bad person, but I'll deal with that later. We'll deal with her later. And it was easy to do this because you probably feel the same way. I had the themes, I had the setting, I had this world, I had the horror, I had every reason to skip this side of the writing. I knew something was off. I knew that it wasn't normal to like keep looking away from this other side of the story, but I had all these other things to focus on. I had my goals. I had what I'm trying to say about the world, and this is the stamp that I want to make on the world with this piece of writing. I had all of that, but I knew in the back of my head something wasn't right. But after a while, it's like, well, I do have to write this character because the memories of this character directly impacts the monster that's looking through her. So I do have to write this character. And so more and more I had to look at these pages, and I kind of had to look at what I was writing for her. And I was like, okay, well, I can't. Okay, something's off. And I was just writing plot, and I was just like, I don't want to get too deep. I'll like fix everything later. I was not able to sit and be like, let's talk about, I knew the motivations and like all that like basic shit, but I couldn't really sit and be like, why are you writing her? Why are you writing this character? I could not. And so this was all before I started pulling tarot. So I was just writing and avoiding and writing and avoiding. Then I took this class where one of my teachers was someone that pulled tarot, and she pulled cards before every single writing session that we had. And that kind of got me into like, that feels like a smart thing to do. I'm going to start journaling before I'm writing because something's not right. And that's where everything changed. Because once you start confronting yourself before you start to write, it's impossible not to understand the limitations, the fears, the psychological impacts that your writing is having on you. Once you start really working with yourself, which is what tarot is, like to me, you're just kind of like working with yourself. Once you start working with yourself and being with yourself, it becomes impossible to run from your writing. Okay, so now in the story, right? Like we've run, shit's not right. My story was not good. It wasn't great. And to be honest with you, when it came to TV writing, it was a little bit easier, because with TV writing, it's like, well, if I'm working for a show, there was some stuff in the show that I can put that's like me. So on How to Get Away with Murder, season 6, episode 6, that's my episode. It starts with an Irish dance. I used to be an Irish dancer, so I was able to put certain things in. I was able to put things in my speeches that were very 100% me. Sometimes you can come into a writer's room and be like, when I was 6, I went to the doctor's office and he bashed me in the head, and then that goes into the show, and that's great and that's fine. But there's a bit of a separation. I don't know how to explain it. There's like a separation because these characters are not yours. It's like, it's kind of cool to put yourself into it because, you know, it's not necessarily just about you. So having a little piece of you in the large piece of the pie just feels like the book that you're writing, the novel that you're writing, the piece, the poem, whatever, that is just you. You can't be like, oh, the showrunner said. No, it's you. You chose to make those, you chose to put those things in there. You chose to put this thing about your childhood in there. It's you. It's vulnerable as hell. Why am I rambling about this? Anyway, so I take these classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Generative classes, they help me write. Before each class, our teacher pulls a card to help us get like a little writing prompt. Sometimes it's tarot, sometimes it's an oracle, but it's a writing prompt. And it's so helpful. When you're like writing at 8 o'clock in the morning, for me, I had to crank it up like a generator, and I can't just sit down and work. So I started using these writer's prompts as like ways to journal. So I would journal before I started writing. That's how that started. And it was really great because the prompt could be like, you know, why don't you write? The first prompt she ever gave us was about euphoria and joy. And so the first thing that I ever wrote in this class was a euphoric, joyful moment of the monster. I never write joyful things. But first I started writing with a joyous moment for myself. I wrote about a memory that I loved, and like I journaled about what I wanted and when the last time I felt happy and like why I don't connect to these things. And I was able to then write a really great scene from the monster. And I was like, there's something to this. And then from there, I kind of wanted to be a little bit more personal. And I was like, well, you used to pull tarot. Why don't, instead of you just like following her prompts, why don't we pull tarot? And I'm going to show you exactly what I do. Okay, so these are my tarot cards. Hopefully you can see. They're lovely. I got these in New Orleans. Metallic. This is what I do now every morning. I sit down at my desk. I light up my little Palo Santo. Do not do sage. It's not our practice. It's over harvested. Don't do that. Okay, so I like, and I'm sure this is also problematic in some way. And I like the smell. And then I sit up. I burn my Palo Santo. And then I kind of like wave it over the cards. I clean it out every morning because whatever happened last writing session, I want fresh thought. We burn, we cleanse, we smoke it up again. We burn, we cleanse, we smoke it up. Okay, who gives a shit? I'm not the shuffle queen. Don't be mad. But what I do is I keep shuffling, and then usually like at some point a card will pop out. And if a card doesn't, like that, I read the card. This one is the Fool. You can't make this up. I'm not a tarot like channel, so like I still need to look stuff up. I'll kind of like journal off of what I think it is, and then I'll look it up and da-da-da. So anyways, what I do know about the Fool card is I think it represents like innocence, because like, you know, a fool is kind of regarded as like a bad thing, but it's kind of like innocence, fresh beginnings, thoughtfulness. You know, the world is kind of like, you can explore and make exploratory choices. But this is the journal that I use. So this is my journal. So I pull the tarot. I don't know where I put it. So I have my tarot card. I pull my tarot, and then I journal about, okay, how does this new beginning thing fit into my novel? How does this fit into my life? What could this mean for what I'm experiencing in life? And then from there, it kind of just explodes. And I've either kind of cleared my mind of something that I didn't know I needed to be cleared, or I've opened up a thinking process that I can then explore further in my fictional work. So that became the new norm as far as like my writing process. So it was fine. And then one day I pulled the Death card. And so the Death card is exactly what you think she is. Endings, things that need to die, go away, interpret that how you want. The way that I interpreted it was like something about this process needs to die. And that was kind of my first stop. I realized that in order to be a novelist that I wanted to be, I had to make changes in my life. I had to go to bed. I had to like I need to become a bit of a different person. The person that Vanessa is right now, that's my name. Did I ever say that? Yeah. The person that Vanessa is right now is not the person that's going to get my novel done. And so the first thing that tarot kind of helped me get to was I was attached to a version of myself that was no longer going to help me get done with my novel. And so that was kind of the first step. And that was like a really big, intense journaling session. I don't even think I wrote that day because I had to kind of confront, like, you're not doing right. That's what I mean by writing unlocks deeper things within us. The practice of writing itself is a practice that makes us confront who we are. It's not about like what we're writing about. It's who we are as writers. Are you giving yourself time to write? No. Is it because you're people pleasing? Are you giving yourself to write? No. Is it because you're so attached to this other version of yourself that you can't put that aside for a few years to get this done? Writing is much more than just the words on the page. Writing is a bit of a lifestyle. It doesn't mean you have to like go live in a monastery, but your writing practice is a part of your lifestyle. And sometimes looking at your writing practice makes you look at your lifestyle. And I was learning that I was attached to a lifestyle that was no longer healthy for me. So that was the first way that tarot low-key kind of fucked me up. That's not where I found out that I was afraid of being vulnerable on the page. No, because at that point I thought, okay, so I'm just fearful of like change and like I just need a bit of an ego death and like, you know, I need to move on from that. Stay home more, give myself work. That's kind of when I was like, oh, you're people pleasing too much. And I started to make those gradual changes that I am still making to this day. However, yes, it felt good to like clear my schedule. Yes, it felt good to do that external stuff to kind of like, you know, if I need to read, that's where I got the like read 10 pages a day that I did in my last video. That's where I got having my boredom hours. That's when I got my walks, my imagination practice. Like I was doing all this external stuff now to become the writer that I wanted to become. And yet something wasn't working. And yet the work wasn't great. I can be the first to admit it. The work wasn't great. The work wasn't great. And I couldn't figure out why, because now I'm making the changes. Like what's happening? You know what I mean? You can make all the external changes that you want, but just as much as writing is a lifestyle, writing is an internal force. And so looking externally is great, but no matter what we do, writing will always make us confront that thing on the inside of us. And so that is when the second part of the tarot helped me open up to that internal battle that I was facing. Because I wasn't partying as much and I wasn't going out as much, I had more time to write. And the more that I wrote, the more I realized I fucking hated my characters. And not like in a like, something's up. I hate how I'm writing it. I hated the girl character. I hated her. Have you ever written anything where you have a character that you fucking hated? Have you ever written something, or your main character, you despise that character? Even a villain, have you ever written something where you hate a character? But I do think no matter what, a shred of empathy, not forgiveness, not validation. A shred of empathy always has to come through for your characters in order to write a three-dimensional person, because everyone in their head has a reason for why they're doing what they're doing. And if you're going to write a good, strong character, you have to understand why that person, not sympathize, you have to understand why that person is the way that they are. And I was writing a main character that I hated. Why I'm writing this character who should be ashamed of how she was navigating the system, and that's why she got eaten. I was writing this book to punish this person. As I was spending more time, I was like, oh, the only purpose of this book is to hurt this character. This character who should be ashamed that she thought that being special meant anything. This character that thought that she could succeed her way out of harm of society. This character that was told you are going to be something in life and you aren't going to have to deal with all the things that everyone else is going to have to deal with. This person that was not expecting things to be as painful as they are in life and how unfair life can be. This person that was so individualistic for so long because they thought they had it all. This person that low-key kind of sounded like me at some point in my life. This person that kind of sounds like me a little bit now, even though I know better and I'm doing better and I know that there is no room for individualism and I know I'm all about community work. This person that is still a big part of me because I haven't necessarily healed or looked at it yet. This person that might be a part of me that I kind of hate. This person that is me. This novel that has so much me in it. I wrote a character that is a version of me, has so much me in it, and I hated them. Okay, how do you write something that's so personal about yourself that you haven't quite come to terms with yet? How do you write something that you are actively in the middle of healing? I can tell you this. You don't write it from a hateful place. You don't write it being like, fuck this bitch. You don't do that. That's how you end up avoiding it. That's how you end up writing plot for plot. That's how you end up writing stale scenes that say nothing. In order for me to write a scene that said something, I had to have empathy and understanding for whatever side of me I was writing, and I didn't have it. And then we had a big ass tarot class that helped me understand this further. But I pulled 3 cards for a particular type of class. And essentially it's where I'm at now, what the problem is now, the obstacles that I'll have to face to get through it, and then where I can be on the other side, essentially. That's kind of a common pull. And the first thing that I got was temperance. So the long story short of it, temperance is like moderation, it's balance, it's, I'm playing a diplomatic person, I'm listening, I have patience, it's temperance. So in that temperance card, as I journaled about it, I realized that I was so busy trying to present this piece of work that's coherent, that's saying the right thing, that knows the right themes, that I was hiding a huge part of me that was messy and that would take this book much longer to write because it's a part of me that I haven't addressed yet. I pushed that to the side in writing a book that's low-key about me. Then the obstacle, I got Knight of Swords. Energy. It's sometimes being blinded by the challenges and you're just charging forward. You're not thinking, you're just going. I started off being like, I'm gonna finish this novel in 2 years. I was just so blinded by the go. And I was so I have to just get this done. I wasn't interested in sitting in the gunk and in the dark, hard parts of writing. It was just you need to go. And I realized that's how I live my life in general. It was helping me charge through the messy scenes that had my vulnerability in it because I was so just we just get this done. Don't think about that. Let's just write it. I was skipping the mother-daughter scenes. I was skipping all the things that had me in it because I just needed to get it done. I am someone that is very much on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And screen time, phone addiction, internet has allowed me to block out all the hard parts of what's the emotional impact of continuing forward? Why do you want to do this thing? Let's pause. I've just been able to steamroll ahead without being very thoughtful. So that's another interesting thing to pull for your work. What is an obstacle that you are facing? Not just in the story, you need to more plot. What is an obstacle that you as a writer or as a person are facing, and how can that apply to your work? And then finally, where you can go, I got the Magician. about like this manifestation. It's about intuition. It's about really getting to a place that you set your mind to that is deeply, deeply internal, and taking those tangible steps to get there. And that was a very relieving thing, that like there is a version of me that is driven by this intuitive writing that has come up with the thing that I wanted to come up with, and it was 100% me, and it came from my intuition, and I got it done. That is the goal. But to get there, we need to address the other things. And I remember that day, the last card that I pulled was the Devil card. And this was the key. So the Devil card is all about what's holding you back, looking at what's holding you back. And I journaled about that for a while. I was like, well, I know I'm trying to get to this Magician card, and I know that the obstacle is just like this constant go, 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 and like da 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 da, but like what's holding me back? So as I was journaling about the Devil card and what's holding me back, I went from there's nothing. There's nothing but me. So what am I fearful of? And then I went back to like, well, let's look at the material. I don't like my main character, and my main character, whether I like it or not, is very much me. I am skipping over the scenes that involve me and the things that I need to write about that are kind of in my real life. I'm avoiding writing these deep relationships, mother-daughter, the things that I myself am impacted by. I am skipping over the moments that I know in my real life are very much me, and the things that I'm ashamed of on the page. So what is holding me back is me and my fear of writing myself. It is the fear of what is on the page. It is the fear of me putting too much me in my work. And the reason why I can't get it done, the reason why I won't be able to hit this goal of having something that's very conscious and thoughtful, is my own fear with what is on the page. I am on the page. There's nothing holding me back but me. We're not just coming up with characters out of our ass. Sometimes we are, but no matter what we write, there's going to be us inside of the character. And I was foolishly thinking, this isn't me. This is something else. But it's me. And you're writing you. Even if you're writing your villain character, you are writing what you think is villainous. You are writing what you think is heroic. And that's why everything is political, but I can't do that right now. I can't. But my main character is going to be very obviously me. We are dealing with a character who thought that they could work their way out of the pain and suffering of a system. That is a thought that I had for a lot of my years, because that's what was conditioned into me. And it wasn't on a malicious, like, you're better than everybody else. Quite the contrary. That is why I was so invested in doing work and helping and community work and mutual aid. But in the back of my mind, it was always, well, you're a little different. I'm far past that. That doesn't mean I've grieved that. And I think this book is one giant, I'm coming up with this on the spot right now. Oh my God. This book is essentially me grieving a part of me. Oh my God. This book is me grieving a part of me, while also hopefully validating new ideas. But I can't do that if I'm not tapped in. When you look at your book, what purpose emotionally do you think that your book is serving for you? Is it about exploring your own joy? Is it about exploring gender and euphoria or pain? Or like, what is it in your book that you are emotional? What is thematically you're exploring, and the emotional journey that has to go along with those characters around that theme? And I bet you'll discover a bunch of pieces of yourself lodged into your characters. Unfortunately, me is most of that main character that I was avoiding. And so I didn't want to be vulnerable on the page. I'm thinking of like, well, what if my family realizes that this scene is about them? What if someone realizes that this part of the book is actually real? What if I show this part of the character and people don't like me because they realize that this is what I used to think? Tarot / journaling / introspection helped me uncover what this book was doing, what it's about, in my journey with this book. My journey in this book is going to be the journey of being vulnerable, giving myself empathy, and then loving myself enough to know I can be vulnerable, and whatever the reception is, I have myself. You might have a different journey when it comes to your book, but I truly feel like keeping a journal of your journey in writing is going to help you stay the course, stay grounded, and understand when things get hard or when things need to get a little bit brighter, where you are at and why you are on this journey. And that's kind of where I am. And so once I kind of got that aha moment, I ran an experiment. So I like to handwrite, and that is new because of this novel. And I said, there's a scene that I've really wanted to write. There's a version of a scene that I have that serves a really big purpose. And the version of the scene that I want to write is really close to home. In fact, it's basically a fictionalized version of a real event. And I've been afraid to write it like that because I'm like, well, if it makes it in the book, so and so is gonna know it's about them. But I said, fuck it. This is my first draft. I'm gonna write it. Don't even think about it. Just journal it. And so I hand wrote a scene nonstop, didn't think. I got 10 pages of it. And for the first time, I not loved, but I related to and could understand my main character for the first time. And from there on out, I have not been afraid to write this main character. I had to get it out. There might be too much of me on the page. There probably is going to be too much of me on the page. When I write a first draft, it's probably going to be basically a memoir retelling in a horror like way, and that's okay. Inner child, we need space and time to confront these very real things on the page first, and we can edit ourselves later. I just have a new relationship with my writing because I've used these reflective practices before I write. It doesn't have to be tarot, but it could just be simply sitting down and journaling every morning and dumping your brain out. I just think connecting with yourself first helps you understand how you are as a person before going into writing. And I think understanding you as a person before going into writing is really helpful. So that's what I do now. When I write this character, I make sure that I pull, make sure that I journal, and then I just speed handwrite. I don't give myself time to edit myself. I just go and I let it feel therapeutic. And I think that's the major thing that we need to remember. When we think about writing our first draft, draft zero, as I've heard it called, draft zero is for us. Fuck everybody else. You could low-key draft zero, you could say, I'm about to name this bitch by their first name. You know, you may be writing a bully character or something, and it's like, oh, this is not about Jessica, this is Lexica. Fuck it, I'm gonna write Jessica's name down in draft zero. And I'm gonna say exactly what the fuck she did. I ain't gonna fictionalize the time that she bullied me. You're writing a fantasy thing? Pull elements from that person that you know. Yes, this elf is indeed based on my father, and it's clear. Like, you know what I mean? Like, draft zero is for us. I don't really have like helpful hints outside of treating our draft zero like it is for us and allowing you to have an emotional journey along with your draft zero that you track either via journaling, via your notes app, via this kind of like this YouTube thing is kind of that for me as well. Like, we are just having a way to track how you feel and where you're at and give yourself space to reflect in tandem with your work. So you're not dumping all your bullshit onto your work. But it's really important that we know the shit that we're putting onto our work versus being like something is off and you don't realize what you're putting into you don't realize the harm that you're putting into your work. That's what we're trying to understand. Constantly understanding how we're harming ourselves in our work as artists and making sure we're doing our best to be protective and loving of our work while we're being loving and protective of ourselves. That's not to say you can't cuss yourself the fuck out on your page, but there's no point if you're gonna hate yourself. It's gonna be bad work. Just know that understanding you as an artist is going to help you give better work. And that's all we're trying to do, is make conscious, good, better work. We're here to make conscious art. And so to make conscious art, you have to be able to play around with that dark subconscious of yours. I think it's okay to express the darkness, the confusion, the chaos that lives within us on the page. I think that's okay. But if you realize that there's a part of your work that is missing, or there's something off, or that you're being hard on your artist self while you're writing, that's when we need to be very reflective. And that covers all genres: horror, fantasy, whatever. We each have different things that we're coming into the work with, both positive and negative. And the more that we understand both positives and negatives, the more control we have over what we're writing. And ultimately, I'm not trying to say you need to be in control of what the story becomes, but I do think when it comes to what we are writing, that is the craft. That is the craft. Making purposeful choices in the writing is a part of the craft. And so a tool in our toolbox as writers is to understand the parts of our brain that's preventing us, or maybe making us biased towards certain choices in our craft. This internal work is a part of our craft. Doesn't work for everybody, doesn't have to work for you, but try it out, see what happens. Until then, we keep writing, we keep growing, or whatever the fuck. I don't know. That was giving PBS. Shout out to y'all. Thank you so much for everybody that has watched, commented. I really appreciate everybody on this journey with me. We got this. We're gonna finish our shit. All right, bye.